At the time of the attacks, the American Fire Service tended to be a singular focus. It tended to think about your traditional fire type of emergency. It wasn't that these types of events hadn't happened before. The World Trade Center had already been attacked. Oklahoma City bombing had already taken place. But they were seen as isolated events that were happening in major metropolitan areas, and that when all was said and done with the event, traditional firefighting activities were going to be utilized. So the role of the fire service was a little narrower, I guess I'd say. But after 9/11, particularly with what we saw in the city of New York and FDNY's response, is that it was an ongoing mission that went on for weeks and for months, and that the recovery and the restoration of normalcy in that area was something that the fire service was directly involved in all three areas. So the fire service had a sense that they have a larger role than just the immediate response. It can be the prolonged event where it's going to take a lot of human resources and a lot of specialized skills. The other thing was this was not a traditional fire event, and it caused the fire service to examine what we call an all hazards approach, to prepare ourselves for any type of event, regardless of what created the incident that has a large catastrophic impact in our communities. How can we best respond? I think that's the second takeaway for the American Fire Service. We're not just a singular focused organization any longer. We really have a much broader focus. We need to prepare ourselves to be ready for that, and the public now expects that. NFPA's response to the events of 9/11, along with assisting in the investigation and sharing that information to analyze exactly what happened, was to look at responder safety and to begin to examine how did our personal protective equipment perform on those days? How did our structural firefighting clothing protect ourselves against the immediate dangers? How could we decontaminate ourselves if we had been exposed to anything? We also looked at our ability to establish incident management systems on the scene and to organize responders from multiple areas so they could work as if they were all from the single agency. And NFPA 1561, our standard on incident management, is an example of that. And we've introduced some of those things that were learned at our varying professional qualification documents, NFPA 1001, NFPA 1021, to better educate aspiring firefighters and fire officers as to how the world has changed and what's expected of them today. If I look at the emergency responder community today and I evaluate its ability to meet the challenges of a similar event like we saw on that tragic day, I would say we are definitely more aware of these types of events. We will recognize them for what they are. We will understand the significance and the far-reaching impact and the need to get specialized resources responding as soon as possible. Many which have now been built up through federal dollars and state dollars at the local level. Mass decontamination units, field communication units to improve interoperability, assistance to firefighter grants that funded a new generation of self-contained breathing apparatus, along with portable radios and increased training, have all come together. So the American Fire Service, I would observe, is better equipped, better trained, and more aware. So they are in a better position to respond. The critical piece that's missing today is in 10 years' time, what was so fresh in our minds in 2001, 2002, 2003 has become a little more distant. The political will to provide the funding may not be as strong. The individual responsibility to accept this mission and remain committed to the training and the memories of those 343 firefighters that died in New York City may not be as strong. So while we have the tools and the resources and the understanding, the commitment piece, the funding piece, that's going to be the challenge going forward.